What if I told you home insurance isn't about fear and it's a replacement for faith? It's actually one of the clearest examples of faithful stewardship in action, because most people think the question is, if I trust God, why would I need insurance? But that's actually the wrong question. The better question is, what does it look like to trust God with what He's already entrusted you with? Because when you look at scripture, God doesn't just call his people to believe, he calls them to act wisely within what he's given them. And one of the clearest examples of that is Joseph. Okay, so I want to cut to the Logos Bible app right now in Genesis 41 because Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream. So after 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. Insane. Imagine dreaming the same thing for 2 years. And behold, there came out of the Nile 7 cows, attractive and plump, and they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came out of the Nile after them and stood by other cows of the bank of the Nile. And the ugly, thin cows ate up the 7 attractive, plump cows. And Pharaoh awoke, and he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on the stalk. And behold, after they sprouted, 7 ears thin and blighted by the east wind, and thin ears swallowed up the plump, full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dream, and there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, I remember my offense today when Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed the same night, he and I, each having dreams of its own interpretation. A young Hebrew who was there with us, Joseph, a servant of the captain of the guard, were told he could interpret the dreams to us. Given an interpretation to each man according to his dream, and he interpreted to us. So it came about. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged. That is exactly what Joseph said. So Pharaoh was, yo, bring me this guy. I'm paraphrasing now, so let's just keep that in reality and in check. But they quickly brought him here out of the pit, and he had shaved himself and changed his clothes. Okay, I guess he's got to look nice before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and there's no one who can interpret it. I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, behold, in the dream. Okay, so he goes through the dream, plump, everything, thin, 7 ears, 7 corns, and he needs the one. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 good years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind are also 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh, God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will become 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, but then after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land and plenty. Okay, so we are going through Genesis. Dude, Logos Bible app, you're awesome. If you want to do, a little bit of word study, you can over here. You don't have to. But anyways, we're not going to do word study. We're just kind of getting down the story, okay? So, taking a dive into Genesis 41, where we look at the story of Joseph, not of his brothers, but of when he was in prison. And then in Genesis 41, Pharaoh goes over his dream, and Joseph doesn't just say, just trust God and do nothing. He doesn't say that. Don't worry about the future. He creates a plan. He organizes resources together, stewards what he's been given. Dude, Pharaoh gave him second in command over all of Egypt because he can do this dream stuff that God has given him as a gift. So that's the shift we have to make today. Not faith versus insurance, but faith through wise, responsible action. Real estate, insurance, finances, these things aren't outside God's kingdom. They're areas where we live under his lordship every single day. So instead of asking, is insurance biblical, we should be asking, what does faithful participation in the economic sphere actually look like? So let's get back into Joseph wasn't paranoid about this whole thing. He was in participation. It was cultural work. He stepped into the Egypt's economic system. Oh man, that's hard. And operated with what he didn't withdraw from it. He elevated it. And that matters to you and me, because when you buy a home, when you insure a home, when you plan for risk, you're not stepping outside of faith. You're actually stepping into the role you're called to as being a good steward. But before we even talk about protecting something, we have to understand who it belongs to. So let's cut to the Logos Bible app again. Psalm 24. We went over this a little bit in our last video, but the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. Okay, so the word dwell here is, let's see, let's look up the study for it. It is
Yashab.
to sit down, remaining, dwell. So sit, remain, dwell. So dwelling doesn't always just mean home. It means where you're sitting, where you're remaining, who you're in. Psalm 24:1. So your home isn't actually yours. It's something you've been entrusted with. And once we see that, everything should shift. And this pattern shows up everywhere in scripture. Okay, so let's look at some wisdom from Proverbs now about just those patterns we're seeing about the Lord owns things. So Proverbs 6-8, go to the ant, O you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise without having any chief officer or ruler. She prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. So there is preparation that is happening that we see pattern after pattern, and we can go through tons of different scriptures to see that happening. Even creation itself teaches preparation, not fear, wisdom. So let's define this correctly. Insurance, homeowners insurance, is fear-based thinking. It's about stewardship in action. It's saying, God has entrusted me with something valuable and I'm going to care for it responsibly so it can continue serving its purpose. And Jesus actually speaks directly to this idea. Okay, so we want to go over a couple of other things about, being a steward of things that God has given us. So we're going to look at Luke 16 here about the rich man. I this story, and we're probably going to go into Matthew 14 about the parable of the talents as well. But it says, there was a rich man who had a manger, and chargers were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said, what is this I hear about you? Turned in the account of your management, for you can no longer be manager. And the manager said to himself, what shall I do, since my master is taking management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I have decided to do what to do, so when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses. So houses, let's go. So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He said, 100 denarii. He said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then said to another, how much do you owe? He said 100. He said 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and write 80. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. The sons of the world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generations than the sons of light. And I tell you, my friends, I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteousness, and that you, when it fails, they may receive you into eternal dwelling. Wow, I can't read right now. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have been faithful in righteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? So God is just saying in this parable, Jesus is saying in this parable, if you are faithful with little, you are faithful with much, which goes right to Matthew 25. Matthew 25. Okay, which we'll go through the parable of the 10 virgins. Okay, so this is the parable of the talents, to one who was given 5, and another 2, and then another 1, each according to their own ability. So each had an ability, and then he went away. The master went away, and the person who received 5 went at once and traded with them and made 5 more. And then also the guy with 2 made 2 more talents, but the one who received 1 went and dug up in the ground and hid the master's money. So now after a long time, the master came back and settled the accounts and received them, and 5 talents came forward. more saying, Master, you delivered. This guy made 5 talents, the master's happy, okay? And then the second guy comes and did 2 more talents, and the master said, you've delivered me 2 more talents, you've made me happy as well. You're a good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, and I will set over you much. Okay. Enter in the joy of your master. He also had, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I had not sown, or gathered where I had not scattered no seed. So this guy, I learned this in my legacy leadership group a little bit, but this guy literally doesn't know who his master is. And I think that's what we forget when we're trying to be faithful and noticing the different patterns that, that God is presenting in the Bible, right? Is that we can't be entrusted with even little or much unless we know who our master is. Our master is good, merciful, kind. He says, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seeds. So I was afraid. And I think God is always telling us, do not be afraid, act in faith, and he will be providing for our needs. Now, we can joke, right? Where's the guy who works really hard and doesn't get all those talents? But I think sometimes we always think it's financial reward, right? But I like the word talent here because, if I can study this a little bit, talent is in the Hebrew. Let's see if I can do a word study on this. Let me scroll up. Bible word study. Okay, talent, a balance that which is weighed, a talent. It's not a financial thing. It's just this piece that's weighed. And so it's cool to think about it in that way, as talents might be things that you're gaining not in just financial means, but also spiritual fruit or emotional or skilled communication or body language, right? And so, if we can't steward what God's given us now, why would God entrust us to give more? So Luke 16:10 highlights faithfulness in very little. All right, whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. So if you can't steward what you have now, why should God entrust you with more? So let's pause real quick. So far we've covered God owns everything, we are stewards, and preparation is a part of how we live that out. But now we need to go deeper because this connects directly to your family. In scripture, the family isn't just important, it's foundational. Before government, before business, before institutions, there was the household, and your home is where the sphere lives. It's where life is formed, it's where values are taught, it's where your kids grow up. So when you protect your home, you're not just protecting a structure, you're protecting the primary place where human flourishing begins. God gives us these gifts, right? To protect, to steward, to create the home church around, right? Being hospitable, inviting people into your property to be able to have a meal, have laughs, have fellowship. So there's more than just, I got this home, I live in it, my kids live in it, right? It creates this community dynamic if you're following the teachings in Timothy where it talks about being hospitable. So scripture speaks directly to this responsibility. So we're going to look deeper into that now. Okay, we're going to go to 1 Timothy 5:8 right now. 1 Timothy 5:8, okay? Because, I talked about 2 Timothy and, being hospitable, but 1 Timothy kind of hits home on verse 5:8. So let's dial this up for us, 5:8. And sorry, I got this computer super small, but it says, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he is denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Dude, that's wild. Okay, household, member of the household, members, relatives. Let's see what the word relatives is for. Let's see this.
Dios.
One's own peculiar, one's own by oneself, owns things peculiar, privately, proper, theirs. Friends is in there. Okay, so there is some things in here that we just gotta be on top of. So It's not just providing income. I've said before, it's you're providing protection, security, just a way of means for the next person to get started without having to be anxious. And I think that's God providing through us to help other generations not be anxious. Oh, I got to do all this stuff on my phone or use ChatGPT because I don't have finances. And so yeah, just we could go down a whole slew of things, but we're trying to stick on insurance here. And so dude, I love the Bible. I love God. This is awesome. Providing isn't just income, it's protection too. Because the home is more than just a building, the seed, it's where society begins. Every system we see flows out of households. So when a home is disrupted, there's fire alarms going off, right? Damage, liability. It's not just financial loss, it's disruption to a family's ability to function. And when you help protect that, you're participating in something that's bigger than just the transaction of real estate. You're protecting the dignity of the household. So let me give you some real examples I see all the time. Fires, hail damage, frozen pipes, liability issues. These aren't rare, they happen. And that's where wisdom comes in. I can give you knowledge, but wisdom and knowledge are different, and wisdom comes from God. So if we're gonna get wisdom, we gotta go to the truth, and that's why I'm gonna bring up another verse here in Proverbs. The book of Proverbs, is the wisdom book. Even though the Bible has everything that you can find wisdom throughout the whole thing, but this one is so specific. So Proverbs 12, we'll bring it up here, or 27:12, sorry. It says, "The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it." Dang. So I sometimes think I am going through a lot of suffering because I didn't see the danger and I didn't go back to the word and say, hey, let me, have strong faith, not be one of little faith, and have faith by just committing my relationship to the Bible instead of by sight, right? Sometimes I'm, Lord, I want to see, but it's thy word is the lamp unto my feet. And then your feet is, hey, look down, don't have sight around you, and just focus on what God is doing, even if you can't see it all, right? So cool. And here's something most people don't think about. Systems like insurance, risk assessment, contracts underwriting, they reflect structure and order. They help society function. I mean, God gave the Israelites the 10 commandments, not because there's a bunch of rules, but societally, if we didn't have these rules in place, there'd be total chaos. So some of these things are creating order for us. This is to just dismiss. It's something to engage with wisely. It ties directly into what we're talking about. If you're buying a home or already own one, you need someone who actually understands how to protect it properly. So that ties in perfectly with why I recommend Wilcoxon Insurance Group, the WINS Group. They don't just sell policies, they walk you through what you actually need, what you don't, and how to make sure you're not underinsured. I'll drop their info below. Definitely worth reaching out. I just want to say I appreciate them sponsoring this video so that we can learn about insurance and talk about these things. I'll have that information below in the description. Now, here's what I see all the time. People go cheap. They don't understand replacement costs. They skip liability coverage, and one event can wipe out all those years of progress on fixing up the home or building equity. And so insurance isn't where you just cut corners. It's where you are clear and defined on what you're protecting. If you're buying a home, insurance isn't just required, it's part of your strategy. And if you're relocating, this matters even more. Different areas have different risks. That's why I created a free Sioux Falls relocation guide. It walks you through the cost of living, neighborhoods, and real estate ownership costs. So you can grab that in the description below. I think I'll pin it as well in the comments. Joseph, preparation didn't entire communities, not even just when we read in the text Egyptians, right? All the way back in, the beginning chapters of when Joseph was born and he was having these dreams and his brothers sold him. God was using something bad to do a lot of good in protecting the Israelites. Okay, I want to jump back into Genesis to kind of recapture Joseph's story, and in verse 48 and 49. Okay, let's get here. 48 and 49, 48 and 49, 44, 48, 47, 48. Okay, so 48. And he gathered up all the food in the 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt and put in the food in the cities, and he put them every city the food from the fields around it. And Joseph stored up grain in a great abundance, the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured anymore, or measured. Jeez, he must have had a lot of grain. Man, dude, I'm into sourdough, and I would love to have that much grain for some flour and make my, sourdough breads for but the thing I want to highlight is he stored up grain. So he prepared. It wasn't this God's going to provide manna in this time, right? He had discernment, and he was, no, we need to prepare for this. It's not just gonna poof happen. Okay. And so scripture affirms this pattern throughout the Bible. Proverbs actually highlights this storing up. Proverbs 21:20, to store up, the wise store up choice food, which actually my pastor was kind of talking about in Revelations, how there's the earth is going to have famine or scarcity and lack of food. So that's a big deal to think about, which is kind of mind-boggling. That's kind of how I read the text and how my pastor interpreted the text at First CRC. It can be interpreted other ways, I would say, but it's Revelations, man. There's just some crazy things going on in John's brain. What I'm trying to say is wise people don't just earn, and God does take care of our needs, but he also wants us to prepare. And so when people ask me a lot of times, hey, how did you know to take that step to buying this investment property, this next rental? It's, okay, I had to do all the little preparations of financial analysis. Is the property cash flowing enough? Is the property updated enough? Things to check on, you do. And then once you get about 90% of the way, you go, hey, I can't see the rest of the unknowns. I got to walk by faith. So be prepared. Your decisions don't just affect you. They affect your family, your future, your ability to continue living out your calling. And that's what this really comes down to, not escaping the world, but engaging with it faithfully. So when you protect your home, you're making sure your family can keep living, growing, serving, and contributing to spreading the gospel. So here's how I'd think about this. Don't cheap out on it. Understand your coverage. Work with someone you trust. And this is a balance people miss. You got to do a little shopping too. Okay, not everyone's going to vibe with everyone. So let's make sure we're following Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trusting in the Lord with all your heart and mind and soul. And then when we trust God, we walk in that wisdom, right? So again, God owns everything. We are stewards. The family is foundational. Preparation is biblical. And insurance is just one way we live that out. So if this helped you out and helped you think differently, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep breaking down real estate through a biblical lens. I want everyone to move to Sioux Falls, but this is a really good way to help people with that biblical lens in real estate, because at the end of the day, real estate isn't just a transaction, it's stewardship. So appreciate you guys being here. Lord willingly, I'll see you next week.